Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special invitation. It's really a pleasure and privilege to have you with us here today. We've got some really exciting updates. I think, Eddie, you would agree. We've just the way NoteSchool has grown and what we've been able to accomplish over the last year has been pretty impressive by any any measurement.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. It's what, when I had a dream 15 or 16 years ago of doing this, this is what I wanted. It took longer for the stars to align maybe than I would have hoped, but we've certainly progressed. But this year has been monumental in kind of what's happening in the market. I can't take any credit for the market. I think we could take a little credit for what NoteSchool's done about it. But I don't think we could have written a script really better than the real story of the business and kind of where we're at right now, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we have a full panel here, if you will, which we'll introduce to everybody. But we just want to be on camera to say hello again, and it's been a while probably since you've seen us. Some of you maybe it's been several months. Some of you it might have been longer than that. So we thought we'd just say hello. But we'll go off camera. We've got a lot to cover here, and we'll go full PowerPoint with you, and we'll introduce everybody else for you in just a second. So I'm going to go off camera right now. There we go. And we're going to move into presentation mode here. All right, so again, welcome. You were specifically invited for this. This did not go out to everybody. It went out to a small group, a group that has showed an interest, a strong interest, if you will, in what we have to offer. And we just thought it'd be a great idea to bring you up to where we are now, because again, we do believe in our motto there: superior training, get superior results. So, got a full panel for you. Here today. We've got, of course, Eddie, founder of NoteSchool and Colonial Capital Management and Colonial Funding Group on there with us, as you just saw. And, of course, you got myself on there, and I direct the research and training for NoteSchool. We've got Dwayne Gibbs on here as well, and many of you met Dwayne, a trainer and speaker with us as well. We've got Kevin Moore, national trainer, that is on also, and we've got Ben Hott. So you've got a full cast here, if you will, and so we're going to just guide you through a number of different topics that follow along line with the marketing pieces that we did. So let me just jump right to the agenda, since everybody on the phone or on this webinar, I should say, should be familiar with the folks right in front of you and a little bit of their background, but thought it'd be nice to see a little picture there in case you forgot what we look like, right? All right, here's the agenda. First of all, we want to talk about our members' results and what they've been able to accomplish, because everybody on this panel has seen some really just amazing results over the years, certainly a big improvement year after year after year up to this point, which has been phenomenal. We want to address the fact that is there still an opportunity? All of you on this webinar saw an opportunity at one point, and for whatever reasons made a decision maybe to look another way, or just wasn't the right opportunity. Did this pass you up? We'll talk about that. Also, our new technology. NoteSchool's constantly improving, constantly doing new things, and we've got a new technology that's going to streamline this whole process for you. I want to show you that. Some new techniques. One of the things we always do is stay on top of the market, stay on top of the trends, and project what's likely to happen in the future. And Eddie's come up with a number of different techniques that we are now utilizing and getting great results from, again, because of market conditions. We want to talk about our strength in numbers, and there absolutely is strength in numbers. When you have a group of people that are like-minded and can do volume business together, it really changes things. It enables you to do things that you would not be able to do on your own. And then we'll talk about your opportunity and what you can do and how you can tap into this opportunity, because everybody on this webinar, there's not a single thing that anybody who's done very well in our membership that you're not able to do. You can get the same results that they have. So let's jump to the first one there, which is our member results. And Eddie, I'll start off with you on this one because we went back, we ran the numbers, and we crunched them, and the percentage of increase of volume that our students have done, I think, is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I would say an 88% increase from this time last year is pretty over the top. And we can say there's a lot of reasons for that. I think first of all, Kevin, it is a reflection of the market. We've been kind of announcing this marketplace, and we've seen more assets dumped into the market this year than last year. A lot of the assets, honestly, that students bought this year were really kind of originated from last year's, bigger trades, and then you have this trickle down of these trades. And so we're going to, if 88% increase sounds crazy this year, I hate to make crazy predictions, but I don't see us surprising that type of an increase even next year. And it's just simply supply. You alluded to it earlier, and that is, that there's strength in numbers, and it has enabled us to make a lot better trades because we have a lot more members buying from us. And I can tell you right now that the biggest trade that I've ever funded, that we signed the letter of intent yesterday afternoon.
Right.
And that's not today. That's in my career, 35 years.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
I don't think there's any doubt that that we see this type of a phenomenal increase continuing, and it's timing. There's just nothing else to say. It's just timing, and if any business it's true, and the note business it's right now.
Yeah, and that's really what's enabled all of our members to invest more capital than they ever have done before. And if there's somebody on here that talks to more students on a daily basis than Dwayne or Ben, I'm not sure who that is. And so Dwayne, as far as this investing in capital, I've seen it, and I just want to hear it because you talk with our members literally every single day. I've seen it's not just the amount of capital, but they're buying notes from a couple $1,000s now up to $100,000. So you've seen results really from students who are beginners, just starting out, maybe getting their toe wet, to people who are really seasoned. And what's your feedback on that?
Well, I mean, I've been with Eddie going on almost 11 years now, and I could tell you from when it started, having investors coming into the business and having capital and not knowing really which way to go and being able to go further down the road with us, you're correct. You see students that have a little bit of monies to invest to investors that Ben and I deal with on a day-to-day basis that have, $500,000 to go out and deploy. And it's amazing how people were taking the monies from the stock market and from real estate in itself and really wanting to get into notes. And what I have found is people from the ages of 50, 52 are really engaging more in the note business than real estate, because I think they're really seeing that they're able to take a small portion of their portfolio and gradually get into a better rate of return than what they've been receiving before, and then start instilling more money into buying more and more assets. So it's definitely a turnaround, like Eddie was saying earlier, of in the past year, we've definitely seen an increase of people from all different levels of capital that they have getting involved in the business.
Right, and you mentioned returns, and that's something I wanted Kevin Moore to address a little bit, because Kevin, you and I, when we go out and do these training events, we're constantly getting new case studies and working with new students and putting together these PowerPoint presentations. And we almost have to always make sure we do a disclaimer and just say, look, these are phenomenal returns. They're getting phenomenal results, but we have a lot of those case studies. So what would you address as far as return on investment for these folks?
Well, and Kevin, you're absolutely right, and that's one of the best parts of my job, being able to go out and meet people and work in the classes with them for 2-3 days at a time and look at what the real results are. And right now, with where the market is, and Eddie, you had kind of touched on it, where where we see this market continuing to grow and pick up volume. Right now, with what we're looking at the returns, this is a double-digit business. This isn't something where you're going, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this business and make low returns. It's double-digit, and for some people on the non-performing side, because the availability of top quality inventory is out there, and because the discounts are there, they're really looking at being able to grow their money 2-3 times a year at double digits every time they do it, and that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, we've seen case studies as early as well today. You and I were talking a young man, 24 years of age, right? And he's got into the fee income side of this business, and I believe you told me he's getting ready to close on 2 deals. Refresh me on that.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So, very, very sharp young man who has been with NoteSchool now for about 4.5 months. What he's doing is he's focused on creating fee income for himself. In particular, he wants to replace his salary, and so what he's been doing is working the brokering side of the business, and he followed what we taught him, followed the system, and he's getting ready to close on 2 deals, and it'll be nice 5-figure income for him.
Yeah, which is great. And we just had a mastermind in the office with some high-level students of ours, and one of the ladies there, she's on the opposite spectrum of where she's retired. She spends a lot of time playing golf and just looking for that very passive income, and she's just doing great. She's just building up a portfolio, and it's really this industry can just do so much, and that's why Ben, you can address this as well as Eddie. With us, we know that when people come and see us, they're not coming to see us to learn how to buy a single note. That's not what this is all about. We're getting great results on these things because we have something in place. We've got several things in place to make this business easier than it's ever been before, with more opportunity than there's ever been before. So it's not about buying a single note. That's easy. That's not what people want, and we say this all the time at the training, Ben, and what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I just had a conversation with Tony last week, and that was our conversation. He was saying, from the front of the room, we tell people, this is a business that can be done in 7 to 10 hours. And with the technology being the way it is, and outsourcing being, kind of piggybacking on what Eddie was saying earlier, the technology just allows us to, just pull a little bit of time off every day. And one of his main concerns was, Ben, I'm a busy guy, and I said, well, this is a part-time job. It's all you need to do is just pull out a little bit of time. And he had called me last week and said, Ben, you were absolutely right. Just pulling it and following with the system, and it's not about buying a single note. His goal that he came in probably about 3-4 months ago was to buy 5 or 6 of them, and he's closing on his 9th. So you're absolutely right, Kevin. It's not about buying a single note. It's about building that passive income, and that's really what everybody's after, is that passive income. And sometimes we have to use fee income to get there, but passive income is what we're all after.
Yeah, and Eddie, I think that comes back full circle to what you started off with, is this is really what you envision by having all the key components of doing this business. And what would you think the biggest components are that's been doing?
Well, I think there's really probably a combination of 3 things, probably in any business. Inventory is a result of timing, right? All these notes are available. I've been buying notes for at least 35 years, and there's always been opportunity, but the timing of it is at the moment is certainly what we've said, and it's certainly being demonstrated. Second thing is access to inventory. If you're Eddie Speed and you've bought 40,000 notes over all these years, I mean, you're a known guy in the business, right? But so what we've tried to do is to facilitate, and that alluded to what Ben kind of said, and it's time, how much time it takes. And so you don't have to buy notes from us, but we the notes that we either own or notes that we are kind of sponsoring being sold, that are real notes and real deliverable deals, and they're not some broker daisy chain on the internet and that kind of thing. It's access to inventory that are quality notes, and access to that's what saws off a lot of the time that's needed. Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, I've been saying 8 to 10 hours a week. That's not a year. But you really can do that, and we have just a mountain of students that do it that way. And then the last thing I would say is it's know-how. I mean, we're very accustomed to training people that come from real estate backgrounds, and so most people don't start from zero, although you could be like me when I started and start from zero. But the reality is you know, if you're gonna really have a laser edge on the business, you got to have information, and it's just constant layering of information about the business. There's no other way to do it. There's not a shot we can give you. There's not an implant we can stick in your arm, right? Right. And what you find out is, inevitably, people say this over and over and over, when you really learn the note business, it changes your real estate investing forever. And I cannot tell you how many people that came to us that, by anybody's definition, was a mega seasoned real estate investor, and then they started down this long trail of note school with us, and they wake up and say, crap, I can't believe how all of these dimensions that I really learned from the note space changed a lot of the things I do in real estate. And I'm like, it just happens. There's a reason that my friend Ken D'Angelo that founded HomeVestors, right, that I set up their note system. There's a reason that the true fact is that Ken, when he started HomeVestors, it wasn't making a profit, and so he couldn't pay himself a salary. And for probably 6 or 7 years, he couldn't pay himself a salary. And I'll guarantee you, 5 of those years, the majority of his income that he was able to pay himself personal salary came from the note space. Here's a guy that was probably the smartest single-family house buyer in the United States, and the truth of the matter is, Ken's, what let him build his dream of HomeVestors, the ugly house guys, what let him build that was income from the note space. And real estate investors figure that out, and they're like, wow, just how it works.
Right. And I know one of the other things that you envisioned is now on its third. Is this our third one?
This is Note Expo number 3.
Number 3. That's what I thought.
We're a month away, and we have almost 400 people registered. That doesn't include vendors. It's going to be at the Fort Worth Convention Center. Now, our mentor students, our members that do stuff at a deeper level, they have a whole significant day that's before Note Expo. So they come to Note Expo, but they get more than just the attendees of Note Expo. And it's a day of deep dive, and we have a really nice kind of a banquet with them and a charity auction, and it's a full day from early, probably registration at 8 or 8:30 to probably 10 o'clock that night, and then Note Expo starts the next day. So Note Expo is designed to be a note trade show. So obviously we have our Note School high-end members come. We have other people in the marketplace come. It's not a class. It's a trade show. It's a trade show about our business. And if you're wanting to see what the marketplace looks like, this is obviously going to be a good place to do it. And obviously, if somebody is a mentor student, they're going to enjoy that other day as well. So we're really proud of this. It's going to be at the Fort Worth Convention Center, and it's going to be fun. Obviously, as some of you know, some of you may not, trade shows generally the attendance grows a lot in the last 30 days. So we're not saying there'll be 800 people there, but there'll certainly be more than how many we have registered today. Historically, we get a pretty good surge of registrations at the end. So if that's something that you guys would consider, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, and a great place to meet other folks and meet the vendors and that sort of thing, which leads us to our next thing, which is there still opportunity? You know, there's been a lot of, let's face it, the note industry has become the pinnacle of real estate investing. It's where people become what we like to call at NoteSchool, of course, a deal architect, and that's taking the best of real estate and the best of notes and combining those things, and that's the next phase, really, the evolution of where a real estate investor is today, and they're all looking for opportunity, and there's different investors at different levels of their knowledge of real estate, and the ones that we call deal architects that combine real estate with notes see the best opportunities both in the buying side and also on the exit side of this, but it does always start with inventory, and Kevin Moore, that's something you talk about at every single training we do, and you keep up with that and you read about that. You were sharing an article with me this morning about that. It's just something that you do, so certainly you can address that a little bit for us about inventory levels and what we're seeing on the non-performing side to start with.
Sure, and on the non-performing side, what we have seen is starting in about 2014, we started seeing the big banks and Fannie and Freddie started to sell off assets, and it wasn't a situation where they had a choice. The government, who bailed them out and gave them all the money, said, listen, you got to start selling these assets off. So what we've seen is in 2015, there was about 15 billion sold. This year, we're going to come in just about at the same number. We're confident that flow is going to continue for at least the next 3, 4, 5 years, simply because there's that much non-performing paper still sitting in the marketplace. And then, Kevin, you're right. You and I think early this morning we're going back and forth, kind of chatting on the phone, having a cup of coffee, even though we're 1,000 miles away or whatever, talking about how even there's another backlog that they just brought out, which is going to give us inventory for another 2-3 years, because it's still backlog stuff that they haven't got to. So I see this as a momentum building side of the business, unlike the distressed real estate side, which continues to have inventory problems. It's constrained. It's a stressed market at this point. So, and then on the performing side of the business, the market dynamics, what we see performing paper coming to the marketplace at an increased rate because people want to go ahead and cash out. So, for example, some of the hedge funds and Eddie, you said, hey, this is the biggest deal that you've done in your entire career. So, congratulations. But what we see is we see a lot of the larger hedge funds are starting to sell off performing paper, and this is where we're in the market, where we then go ahead and buy those pools off for our portfolio, and then also the sell. And with Dodd-Frank, we see where seller finance paper, that supply is going to continue to increase because there's a lot of people in the market that they've been shut off from traditional lending, and so seller finance is picking up that gap in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eddie, I hope you can address, maybe give us a little inside look. I mean, the relationships you've built over the years, it enables us to see opportunities that we really just couldn't see on our own. And then you add in your executive team and their relationships, and I think people need to be aware of that fact, that what you've put together there really enables them to see stuff they just otherwise no other way would be able to see.
Well, the one things that it's important. Yes, we have NoteSchool, but we're in the note buying business, and we own and manage a lot of assets. And I don't know if with this latest acquisition, we'll have over 30 million under management, close to 35 million. I don't know if that's a big number to a lot of people. There's not a lot of people in the note space that buy the type of notes that we buy that have that kind of number under management. The non-performing notes are just a pin-up inventory because whether the banks didn't want to sell or the government wouldn't let them sell, or we can debate that all day. We know that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA have admitted about 18 months ago to about 100 billion in NPLs they had to do something with. So when Kevin Moore talks about this, billion this year and a billion that, it's like, look, it's a simple math lesson. It's just there's that kind of inventory. And then on the seller finance side, you got to remember, we went 5 years and 50% of the people that made a mortgage application couldn't get a loan. They were turned down. That was according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. So, and now you got Dodd-Frank and its regulations, and really somebody buying a house under probably $75,000, mortgage company isn't going to make them a loan in most cases because they just can't afford to make the loan. They can't charge enough points and fees for the size of the loan and what they're restricted to because of Dodd-Frank. So the simple answer is for performing notes, seller financing fills the void that conventional lending doesn't. Another area of performing notes is we have hedge funds that buy reperforming notes that they've either created or they buy them from the banks. And these are notes where people had trouble, now they modified them, now they've been paying for a year, and there's a huge inventory of that product coming. Kevin, you saw a lot of that when you were here at our titanium visit last week.
I sure did.
There's a lot of those kind of notes that, and we went through a lot of the math and kind of how it worked and what happens if an early payoff and that discount you're buying the note at and what does that do to your return. And the answer is, I just am closing on the biggest deal I've ever done in my 35-year career. I know one of my closest friends that's in the business told me he just did the biggest deal he's ever done in his career. Literally, he told me that yesterday. I think that's the reflection of it.
Right, and so now, okay, we see our student members are doing well. There's a good opportunity. Inventory levels are there, but man, now I got to learn how to sort through tapes and build stuff. How do I get access to all this? And I think that's been a big game changer for us. Well, before we break into these points here and talk about this new technology, which is really exciting, Dwayne and Ben, what's your reaction from people who now are working with Notes Direct versus before we had Notes Direct, or what's the reaction of students who are coming in and seeing how the Notes Direct works? What's your feedback, Ben?
Well, actually, it's a lot more streamlined. I mean, that's the number one thing that students say. It's more streamlined. The real-time data that's there that they can actually go through and sort through it at a much faster pace. And, again, tying it all together, going back, it's not just about that one note. It allows our students to go through and kind of funnel everything into what they want to see and run those numbers and do the due diligence that's in front of them with real-time data. I mean, I've heard nothing but positive feedback from Notes Direct in the sense of, we're so glad this is around, and I'm so glad that this allows me to utilize my time a little bit better.
Right, Dwayne, you're hearing the same kind of thing, or what are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to copy what Ben was saying. I think that what the organization had to do was it came to a point of creating Notes Direct where we're growing. There's no question, and I think that we wanted to make it more streamlined for our students. I think that we're able to put more assets on that are manageable, that students can manage, that they're able to build upon. And I think that this system is a simpler system for people that are, again, doing this on a part-time basis, that they have all the information there in front of them. Versus the system that we had before, with the VIP asset exchange, where that no longer is in existence. I think that, the company realized, like I said from the beginning, they realized that, hey, we need to be able to streamline this a lot easier for our students, and what does that look like? And, putting Notes Direct in its place, I think it's been a positive turn for the company, and also a great plus for our students to be able to buy more assets.
Yeah, and Eddie, you see both sides where you acquire the assets and then make these assets available through Notes Direct, and obviously had a great deal with helping put the vision of this all together, what's your thoughts and process of how this is going to change? Because I really do. This is going to change the note business. I mean, nobody really has anything like this.
Kevin, I had lunch today with some guys that are what are called custodians. They're the ones that take the documents from these gigantic cells and audit all the documents and tell the purchaser, yes, there's all these notes, yes, there's these endorsements, blah, 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 all that type of stuff. And then they record, all of the transfers and stuff. And you're talking about transactions. Well, I know one of their clients has bought $2 billion in defaulted notes in the last 2 years. And anyway, I knew these guys, Bob Repass and I both knew them for many years. They were old associates guys, and we were describing Notes Direct to them. And my simple explanation was this: I said we had to spend the money. All this stuff, Kevin, it just takes money, right? We had to go spend the money to build the technology that draws in who has the documents, and that when you buy them, there's not missing documents. So there's like a third party that's audited the files and says, yes, there's the note, yes, there's the deed of trust or the mortgage, yes, there's a note endorsement, blah, 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 all right? Those are things that other systems just didn't have available. Now, as seasoned note guys, we understand if you buy the note and you don't have the right documentation, if you buy papers, you don't have all your papers, you're not in good shape, right? So the other thing is it's real time with the servicer and all the information. So it's like it's a feed, and so this lets you get as close to walking in somebody's office and taking their physical file and all the information that has been poured into it that morning. It lets you look at it on the internet.
And that's how you used to do the business, right? I mean, that's what you had to do 20 years ago. You had to physically go to somebody's office and get a big old table, right? And get out the files, right?
We call it spreading loans, and we did it for years and years and years. And so we really built this, and the system and the format that we did that took a lot of resources, but we're proud of it. And I don't want to seem like we're bragging. But I will say this: it is a one-of-a-kind. It's a one-of-a-kind thing that we've built, and we built it because we're in the space, and we buy notes every day, and we know what you need, Kevin, in order to make a buy decision. We understand what you need to know. And we built
Eddie, I'd like to say something on top of that. I think what we did really well, too, is we listened to the students because, we identify that students are buying more assets, and this enabled them to do the business a lot easier.
Before we launched the system, we've been testing it with our mentor students for about 3 months, but we were selling one-off notes without Notes Direct. And I mean, we're talking about many, many hundreds of notes. And we were having to interact with them and give them what they needed and hear back from them. And so you're right, a lot of what we built was based on the common questions and the common, hey, I need this, or can you find this for me? And so we did understand not just what we thought they needed, but what they needed and what they declared they needed. And so we're really proud of it. It's a milestone for us for sure.
Yeah, and it's very easy to work through too, and being able to search for assets and then take ones that you consider your favorites, those ones that you want to take another look at, and then you can build your own customized tape with a click of a button. When you're ready to buy, you click on another button. So you don't have to be very savvy with technology, right, Kevin Moore? I've got to pick it on a little bit.
As the least tech-savvy guy on this call, I agree with you. Absolutely. All I got to do is just hunt and peck, and it all works like magic.
Yeah, it's really streamlined to go through, and I know the guys who built the platform too. I mean, they're all experienced note people, so it's the very people who built this know the note business and they know the technology, so they built it around that, and they're already working on additional add-ins and other things that we can put in this process. So it's an online, just to kind of wrap this up, it's an online program. You get a user ID, and you log into it, and you're immediately able to filter through the assets, take an initial look at them, load them into your favorites, build up a tape, do more further due diligence, crunch some numbers, and then when you're ready to go, you order, you click a button to purchase right from there. All the contracts, everything is all automatically generated, uploaded right to your account, and it's just really streamlined the whole process, unlike anything that's ever been available really in this space. So it is really a game changer for us here. So are our techniques, though. You know, we've got some new techniques again that show this evolution of a real estate investor, and I know this is something, Eddie, that you're real passionate about, because you do all these events nationwide with both real estate investors and real estate note investors and hedge funds and REO investors, and every time you come back from an event, you tell me, boy, here's what they said, and we're right on track with this. This is where we are. So give us a little insight to all that and all the people you've been talking about and how you've come up with these different evolutions.
Well, one of the things that I get to do, kind of at a stage in my career, is I get to go spend a little more time, kind of looking out, you know, the tower, right? Kind of looking out and looking at the business and stuff, and I started noticing these market inefficiencies. And these market inefficiencies really are where guys like us make a living. Guys like the people on this call are going to profit. You know, there's not a huge amount of profit when you're doing everything that everybody else is doing. There's no discount in it, right? And there's no advantage that you have over somebody else. And so one of the things that I realized is this huge market inefficiency, particularly in the turnkey rental property space. And so we took every dimension of it and broke it into a very defined explanation and process, so that we could show you the flow, we could show you the kind of assets to target, we could show you the team that you needed to assemble to do it correctly. In fact, we help you facilitate that. And then, more importantly, we showed you strategies where there's financing inefficiencies. You know, Kevin Moore lives right outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Kevin Moore lives in a world where there's houses in really nice neighborhoods, not unsafe, not a bunch of houses that are dilapidated and blighted, but just nice working class properties, and that'll rent for $800 to $900 a month, and yet the realtors are selling them on MLS for less than $50,000. And the reason that's true is because there's no financing available for these houses. And so would owner financing to an investor with a big down payment make a difference? Well, it's a game changer. So we solve that problem. How do you find the investor? How do you find the California investor? And how do you find you know, this property? And so we have really taken this product to a completely different level and defining it. So Kevin, I think we'll unveil the name of it. We used to call it the 50-50 model. Now we had to come up with an official name, and we chose the name Turnkey Flipping Academy. And that's part of what we do within our membership. And it can work on properties that you currently own. It can work on houses that you currently buy, or it can work on defaulted notes that you foreclose on that you're unable to modify, and then resell those properties. And so, you know, I would say, Kevin, it's not brain surgery, but I laugh and say, and I know a lot of people in the turnkey space, I laugh and tell my friends in the turnkey space, how come an old note guy had to go quantify this in your business? And they laugh and say, well, you're right, it's true. It was an unfilled market. And I know several guys that are like significant turnkey players with heavy numbers, and they've all been like, this is it. You're right, Eddie. You guys identified all these untapped areas. I know Kevin Moore is our team probably the most experienced in the turnkey space, because Kevin, you used to be a lender to them, right?
Yeah, yep, that's correct. Yep, doing it.
How many houses have you loaned money on for a guy to do a turnkey property?
Turnkey houses, thousands.
And I've heard you say before probably 10 or 12,000, just so people get.
Yeah,
really
I stopped counting at 10.
So here's the thing about when Kevin, I knew Kevin for years, Kevin Moore, before he started with us, and here's what he was doing. He was working for a hedge fund that was loaning money to guys that were doing turnkey properties. And when I first told him my idea, now I didn't have all it glued together like we do now, but I first told him my conceptual idea. Immediately, Kevin, I remember you saying, it's like, how come nobody else has done this?
Yeah, exactly, because you did. You put the piece of the puzzle that was missing. You put it together, and I remember where we were sitting too when we had this conversation.
Anyway, so it's been a fun thing. It's been a pretty good journey to go work out the details of it, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm very excited about what we're going to see our members, adding to this dimension. We're seeing them doing deals every day now, doing it, and I think next year is going to be a phenomenal growth year in this area.
Right, and this is something that we've incorporated into our training. We call it Turnkey Flipping Academy, but it's incorporated into our training, our mentorship, our membership, if you will. And I think one of the big points of this whole thing, too, is the way we've put it together, not just the educational side, but the vendor relationship side, enables the small investor to do the same thing that the huge investors have been doing. In other words, it makes it a scalable model where somebody could take this model and really build upon it with no restriction, really nationwide. And that previously, once again, it just wasn't available for the small investor. I mean, to get that kind of vendor relationships, you'd have to be doing 10, 20, 30,000 homes a year to get that kind of stuff.
No doubt about it. The guys that we saw doing the business, the threshold was they had to do at least 100 houses a year to make it work. We've got a program now that you can do 2 houses a year and be just like a guy that does 300.
Yeah, which is again just unheard of before it was all put together, and so it's been great to see that going. It's great to see the results from that. And the next one I have up here, brokering for fee income. Well, that's not a new technique, if you will, because of course we've been doing that, Eddie, you and I, back, I don't know, 25 some odd years ago. But it's new in the fact that there's new opportunity there, because seller financing all but disappeared during the easy finance days. People didn't need seller financing when they could go to a bank and fog a mirror, if you will, and get a loan. And so brokering is really back in fashion, and we've got students getting great results on proven market materials and proven techniques that we teach. And I know, Eddie, you've been working with Zarina, who's our student liaison, which helps students initially get all coordinated and all ready for our educational approach. And can you give us a little insight as to what you all put together that's coming up at NoteExpo.com?
Well, the day before Note Expo, we call it the Appreciation Day. So this is just for our mentor students, but a lot of that day is going to be addressing the whole fee income issue, different strategies in brokering, and kind of what it's going to take to climb that ladder. And of course, this is something that I have a lot of experience with. I've probably literally mailed 5 million pieces of mail to people that owned a note. And I call it a selling cycle, and it's just like anything else. When somebody shows you a formula and they show you the strategy and the steps to the strategy that are proven, it has a phenomenal difference in changing your success. And that's what I say. There's no other way to look at it. That's what we want for people. We want to create an environment where we can drastically change your success. That doesn't mean you're not going to buy notes and own them yourself. It doesn't mean that you may not work with other people's money to do it, but sometimes it's just nice to make some fee income, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you can make money in this business really with very little to none of your own, there is effort, right? But not having to, you still have to go through the same process, but be able to make that fee income. We have a lot of folks who just do that very passively, almost on the side, which is great. And then to counter that, though, we have people who want to go and raise private money. And we had a great, again, Eddie, you led a whole team. There were 4 teams that went through and created this private money playbook. So give us a little bit on that.
This was a project. It took us probably 9 months to finish. It started with kind of a core group of our high-end titanium students, and we kind of, for lack of a better term, had we had a mastermind with them, and then we had kind of like a focus group. What would help you the most, blah, 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 and then we reverse engineered it. We got most of our staff involved heavily in doing it, and we actually reduced it down to something that's on the membership site as well as physically a book. And it's built like a playbook, like a sports playbook, like football plays or something, and it lays out different dimensions of it. There are 4 components to it that involve everything from your social media to your presentation to your follow-up process, and then it basically summarizes your investor management. And there's so many people today that just need to invest their money because they're scared of the stock market. There's more dry cash, uninvested funds than we've ever seen. That continues to exist. And this is something I think everybody should be doing. This is something that we do ourselves. We have a capital fund, and then also, we fund a lot of the acquisitions with our retirement account transactions with just small investors. So we're out there doing the same things that we're trying to get you guys to do. And really the team leaders, when we developed this playbook, really were all like super active out there doing every dimension that we were kind of building it into these certain sections in the book. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and you're learning from the people who have actually done it, which is great, and it's laying out really like a blueprint on every aspect, who to look for, what to say to them. And as you mentioned earlier, Eddie, I was in the office this past week at a special titanium event, and the in-office visit, and I'll tell you, everybody in there was excited about this private money playbook, because we say it all the time, but until you really get into the business and start doing this, you won't recognize it, even though we say it, which is they start talking to money a lot sooner than they realize. And then it becomes a matter of, well, what do we say? How do we do it? And you came in for a good portion of that as well. And again, we addressed some of the mistakes that they thought were the right approach to it, and they thought this is the way to do it, and this is the right time to approach them. And we had to reel that back and say, no, this is the best way. Here's the way that you do it, and they left there just really excited. So to be able to sit on a round conference table with a small group like that and really drill down into these issues was really exciting for them to see. And I know virtually everybody in that room who's pursuing. I mean, they're going to go after that big time. So it's having a big impact on that. So. Again, we can teach this based upon to the market and what you want to accomplish, and for a lot of people it might be starting somewhere and building something, and that's going to be a key component for everyone there, and even getting those agreements in place on how to do it and how to make sure if you're doing something with somebody it's done right and it's done legally and everything else. And it's been really great feedback on that. And that goes something with our strength in numbers. The membership base has grown, and that really gives us access to really more of everything, more inventory. We're able to create these trading platforms to build the special relationships. It enables us to do that. So again, we have a vested interest in everybody's success, because as a group we can accomplish so much more together than we can do independently. You know, trying to build your own path on this, you can do that, but again, it becomes why? How much time and effort are you going to spend on that? Where if we all work together, we can do that. And I think tapping into that mastermind is something important as well. I don't know if anybody has other comments on that they want to add in. Jump in there.
Well, I would say this, you know, their day-to-day operation's not going to change. You know, I've been into the office a bunch, obviously, over the years of working with NoteSchool. The day operation's not going to change. So by having the experience of coming in there and seeing how firsthand how they run their business, how they're running their, you know, investments every single day that you're there, I think that's priceless. You know, students that I've talked to that have been seasoned investors that have been over 25, 30 years, and people that are just getting into the business, the feedback is always, you know what, I never looked at being, I never looked at this really being as big of a business as it is, and how I can take a lot of these similarities that they're using on a day-to-day basis and incorporate that into my business. And so I think it's powerful. I think that being able to work with a team that has bought over $3 billion of assets, and being able to show you the do's and don'ts and the ins and outs of this business, and how you can streamline yourself into a business like this to where you don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel. That's the biggest thing. You know, I tell students all the time, you want to make $3,000-$4,000. Heck, you have a job, you're doing that now. But I think Eddie says it best is, you know, what we do really, really well is show students how to go out and create true wealth. You want to make $3,000-$4,000 a year, a month, you're doing that now. But true wealth over a period of time, this is the place to do it.
One thing I would add also is, you know, kind of going back to what we always say, you know, this is a very relationship-driven business. And, you know, like the Note Expo, getting face-to-face time with these vendors, it is priceless, you know, because it just not only builds a camaraderie with everybody moving in the same direction, but, you know, also gives that face-to-face contact with it, and makes it even more special relationship. So the Note Expo is huge, and those vendor relationships that we have, not only the monetary gain with it, but also that relationship with the NoteSchool community itself.
Yeah, absolutely, and the opportunity is really phenomenal. The inventory is there, the assets are there, the streamlined process is there, the assistance is there, how to raise private capital, and again, we all can do better if we all work together and build this. We have an impact on the industry. There's no question about it. We're able to do things as a group of like-minded people a lot more than an individual. And I know, Eddie, you had put together a slide on this before, where kind of a sliding scale where knowledge and desire and available assets and how each one evolves. And you kind of came up with a dynamic of when somebody's looking at specifically with NoteSchool and Colonial, there was this combination of elements there. You want to delve into that a little bit?
Well, you know, so many people in the business, why would somebody not buy notes today? There would be really a couple of reasons. They would be that they don't feel like they have enough knowledge to do it, or they don't feel like they have access to something. It could be access to the notes. It could be access to the money to buy the notes. It could be access to vendors to help them streamline, you know, if they're going to buy a defaulted note, what's that look like? And, you know, as simple as I'm making that sound, that's the components that we focused on. And once again, we're not asking people to do anything or figure anything out that we haven't done a lot. And you know, it's so you have three things there. You have knowledge, desire, and available assets. I would say it almost is like this, Kevin. If you have the knowledge and the available assets, when you see the returns, you're going to have the desire to do it.
Absolutely, and that's a key component of ours, and we say that at every training. You know, we can work with you if you've got that desire, because we can fill in that knowledge gap, and we certainly can fill in the available assets there. So a big part of it is the desire. So seeing that big picture of what can be accomplished in this business is why we spend so much time in looking at case studies and building up these components. But as a refresher, these are the four main benefits, really just four main benefits of the entire membership. There's a lot more benefits and services, but these would be the top ones. And when you've got the inventory, when you've got the proper guidance and everything here, the opportunity to network with like-minded people who can also, again, share their experience, just like the private money book, and then to have vetted vendors that can accomplish the things that you don't specialize in. You know, to go out and call people and do all the stuff that you don't want to do. You can make this business as active and passive as you want it to be, but those four components, that's what you can build something that can grow upon. Those are the pillar of anybody who's involved in real estate and the note business. If you've got all those and you can tie those together with somebody who can kind of get you started, because for a lot of people that's the hardest thing, tapping into this and setting your businesses up the right way, having a place that you can go and get all the tools that you need. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, having an action plan that you can customize and follow along with raising the money. That's really what we have, and that's why our membership has been really so successful. What would you say about that, Dwayne or Eddie?
Well, I mean, it's a matter of helping people build some efficiency. You know, I mean, you know, I think it's true in most businesses. The thing that the success or failure of most businesses is once you kind of learn the concept and the formula and that type of thing, it just becomes as simple as this: how can I scale it? You know, I can't. You know, the scalability and efficiency is really going to allow most people that start down the road at NoteSchool, you know, spending time in NoteSchool and spending time doing the business week after week after week. It gets back to what Ben really said earlier, and they're probably going to be part-time. We get some people that go full-time, and we have a pretty good amount of people that transition into full-time. But most people are going to probably start out on a part-time basis, and time is just as important as all these other things. And that goes into, what have I got to do? We're talking about the playbook, and, well, the playbook's got, I don't know, at least a dozen different follow-up emails. So some investor-type guy, you know, there's already pre-written emails of, hey, you could send a guy an email and do this. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't customize it a little bit, but that just means you don't start out with a blank sheet of paper. And it's the same thing with, you know, direct mail and buying owner finance notes and those kind of things. So I want to focus on one thing, Kevin, and all you guys before we conclude. Mm-hmm. I started doing this in 1980. I was 20 years old. I was a kid. I didn't know. I wasn't a real estate guy like you guys were, right? You guys got into the note space after you were real estate investor types. And I was 20 years old. I mean, you know, I was investing in Coca-Colas, you know, and so I got lucky enough to be taught this business, and the one thing I did that I look back and think that was really smart, and it was lucky because I don't think I you know, was intuitive enough at that time to really get it, is I acted on it. And you know, this business, this window of opportunity right now, as I mentioned, I had lunch today. I had lunch with some guys that are like, got crazy resumes in the business, crazy big players that they've dealt with, And we were just talking about the small guy, and this kind of the head guy for that company said, Eddie, you're the only company out there that I've seen that legitimately takes a small operator and lets him play like he's a much bigger company. And I said, well, that's our goal. And do we have a motivation to do it? Well, did I mention to you that we buy loans in bulk and sell them to students one at a time? Yeah, we have a very high invested interest in people learning how to do it. Ben, what else before we hang up, my friend?
Well, we've got a special phone number set up there. Dwayne, tell us how that's going to work.
So what we're going to do is Kevin's posted a phone number on here, and students are going to be able to reach out to us. They have questions about the assets, obviously, about how we can help them get them to the next level, and it's just not a couple-minute phone call. I mean, we spend time with them really trying to figure out what their game plan is, and we need time to talk to them. I mean, it's a serious situation for their investment and their business and how they're wanting to structure it, and it takes some serious time. So the call's probably going to last about half hour, 45 minutes for us to really design something that's going to make sense to them. You know, as Eddie was talking about earlier about part-time, 90% of our students do this on a part-time basis and then mainstream into full-time, and we see a lot of students doing that. So,
hey, but they can call this number and just say, I would like to set up one of those phone calls, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And if it's busy, leave a message there because the phone line could get busy. But you can call that number and say, yep, I was on the webinar. I'd like to talk with somebody, and we can set that up and make sure that happens for you.
Yeah, and let me clarify this. You guys that are attending this webinar, you are people that we've spent some time with, and we've identified you as
correct.
The right type people that we're looking for. And this webinar is not available to the general NoteSchool database, and so it's not an accident that we've talked about a deeper kind of a side of the business today and stuff, because we think you're a candidate to go take this business to a different level, and we're just trying to help you do it. So I know, Ben, you and Dwayne are going to be working on these calls specifically, and maybe Kevin Moore may be on some of those, or whatever it's going to take to kind of help somebody go to a different level. So I know some of you had some questions, and we just decided, instead of just trying to take a kind of a free-for-all of Q&A and that kind of thing, that's really when just reach out to us, call this number, and then let's get an appointment set so that we can talk to you at a deeper level. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and we appreciate you being on the webinar. Look forward to working with you all. So thanks on behalf of everybody on the panel there. Thank you all so much, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.